Vote counting is underway in Liberia's presidential runoff election. Voters were choosing between George Weah, who is trying to secure a second term in office, and the former Vice President Joseph Boakai. More than 2.4 million voters had registered to vote. Arise News correspondent Punarimam Benjamin reports.
Eligible voters in most of the polling units were out as early as 8 a.m. to cast their votes. The voting process is smooth, with no tension except for one of the party's agents who expressed dissatisfaction with the process.
I will take if I want to attack first.
They attacked you?
Yeah.
Who are those people who attacked you?
The king, they said the king from, like they say, our CBC task force. Now they say, so we dissolve that. But now everything could not found smooth.
However, other polling units are calm and peaceful. In one of the polling units visited by ECOWAS, priority was given to the elderly, pregnant women, and the less privileged. Here is Liberia's first foreign minister. He is over 90 years old and became the first voter at this polling unit. Like other Liberians, he wants the new administration to improve on infrastructural development.
What we want now, we want peace in this country. We want our people to be satisfied with whom they have voted for, and putting into action that person will carry this country to peace and tranquility, and at the same time develop the country and make all those who are citizens of the republic and residents and also to enjoy the fruits of their benefits, and for making Liberia a peaceful nation.
Yeah, there was no problem. I never observed any problem when I went to vote. I went my candidate that I wanted to vote for, and easily I voted for my candidate. I came out. I think you can see since this morning.
Yeah, my expectation is that the election will be peaceful, be credible, and it will be transparent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm very hopeful of that.
The election observers continue to monitor the situation around the country, visiting more polling units and situation rooms. The head of the ECOWAS observation mission, Atai Rujaga, describes the process as peaceful.
I think in general, it's commenced very well, on time, and the polling station officials appear to be doing their job properly, and there are many voters who have come out, some on the queue, waiting to discharge their responsibilities. We are happy that it looks smooth and peaceful, and we hope it will continue to be so.
Voting has ended and counting has begun. Liberians are now waiting for the result to know who becomes their president in the next 6 years. Punarman Benjamin, Arise News.
Okay. Joining us now is Dr. Kester Ono, a senior research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, NIA, and Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former Nigerian diplomat. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well, two questions. I'll start with you, Ambassador Keshi. We saw Professor Mahmoud Jega there, head of the ECOWAS Electoral Observation Mission, saying that the election yesterday was very smooth, particularly around Monrovia, and there have been no dramatic reports of violence. Unlike the October general election, what do you think could be responsible for this calm this time around? And then Dr. Kester Ono, Boakai, Joseph Boakai, former vice president, the second person in this election, has been able to secure the support of 3 of the 4 major other candidates in the election. Okay, most of those candidates, they scored just 3%. But now he has 3 of them, 3 of the major ones endorsing him. That seems to give him an advantage. But the general perception is that at 78, He's an old man. Do you think that that could be a major factor in the outcome when the result of the polls are announced? But let me start with you, Ambassador Keshi.
Good. Thank you once again for having me. I think the main reason could be that unlike the first election, I think also that there were parliamentary elections and there were more candidates, even from the provinces, So, one should expect that that was a larger election. In this very election, you only had two candidates, the presidential, candidates. And when you look at it very well, almost everywhere, when you have a runoff, the number is not often too high among, some voters get tired and then just won't show up at the polling station. But the good news is that the reports coming out of Monrovia this morning is that it's been peaceful. At least the second one has been peaceful. But I make the point that I think it's because the first one was a general election. You had more candidates, taking part in that election, and that itself, brought out everybody, particularly from those running from their constituencies.
Boakai, Doctor.
Thank you once again for having me. Well, if you look at the alliances that has been built by the two major candidates, it's obvious that about three, among the four contending candidates, about three of them, they've built alliance with Joseph Boakai. However, that alliance may not actually make a significant change, considering the fact that it's about 3%, even four of them. We have to consider about 6% that their votes were invalidated in the first election. So now if those 6% are actually coming to vote, I believe that those 6% can actually make a remarkable difference. Moreover, if you look at the age of the former vice president, that is Joseph Boakai from the Unity Party. He is 78 and the age is a handicap. And when we look at George Weah's supporters, that's the incumbent president, you realize that the overwhelming majority of the youths are actually supporting him. So he has the mandate of the youth. So if we look at it, at least we can give him that chance that at the end of the day, he may prevail in this election.
All right. You keep talking about, yes, the young people might give him a chance that he may prevail, but the counter-argument to that is the record of George Weah. A lot of people say, for whom so much is given, so much is expected. Ambassador, I'll come to you first. On every parameter you could ever think of, about George Weah, people have criticized. But also, some have also argued that, okay, there were some reforms in the financial sector. Take, for instance, the Forex that we are struggling to get right here, the stability in the Forex market. But they said these reforms came in a little bit too late. And this is from financial experts that come out of, independent financial experts that come out of Liberia. And recently also the deal that was announced, the big, deal that was announced as regards the sectors in Liberia, the mining sector and the likes. What would you say as regards this?
When you look at the fact that he only came first in the first round with less than 7,000 votes, it just shows you that he's a very unpopular candidate for someone who has been president for 4 or so, I can't remember how many years their tenure is now.
5 years.
5 years. So if you've been president for 5 years and you go for an election and you could only beat your opponent by just 7,000 votes, it just shows you that the people are not generally satisfied with what you've done, in the last 5 years. And I think one recurring issue was the promise he made to deal with those who were responsible for the violence, particularly the victims of the families of the victims of violence. We're hoping that he will address their issues, which of course he never really actually, addressed. But generally, most Liberians do not think that he's done well enough to be reelected. And I think that's why you could see the outcome of the vote, 7,000 only, was what he could, gather to defeat, the former vice president. And in case of the former vice president, yes, He's too old. I've been trying to remember when you asked that question. How old was the former president of Senegal, when he ran after running for almost 7 or 11, times? How old was he when he ran? And he won. So we just wait. We just wait and see what happens in the next few days when the votes will be,
Dr. Honor?
Well, thank you very much. In terms of his popularity, I don't think that his popularity has a win like that. Considering the fact that today we have about 20 candidates that contested for this election. And for the fact that he emerged as a leading candidate with about 7,126 votes, even though such number, it may not be much per se, but for the fact that he still won with such number in the first election of 10th of October show that he's still relevant. Then considering the fact, I think a part of his challenge, or part of his challenges, are that he removed subsidy on rice. That is the area that we are not even talking. He removed subsidy on rice. And for some of us that know Liberia very well.
The rice war.
Rice is a stable.
Tallbat has no fair share of rice problems.
So for him to remove that subsidy from rice, and he still won in this election, I believe that at least the people still love him, even though there has been this argument that he has not performed well enough. The opposition has equally accused him, poor record on corruption, just like he mentioned. But then remember that he has equally built alliances with local chiefs and the warlords. If you look at Prince Johnson, the former warlords, who control a large portion of Nimba County, he has built a strong alliance with him and they are giving him his support. And when you look at Nimba County is one of the largest counties, in Liberia. So but then he himself is claiming that he has equally supported education, he has built roads and the hospitals, and he has equally brought electricity to the homes. He's only asking that they should give him this second chance. That if he gets this second chance, he should use it. At least he's going to use it to fulfill the promises he has made. Considering the fact that some of those promises he couldn't have achieved it within the first 5 years. So I believe that he still has the support of the people. And even though the election the runoff is a horse race, highly contested, neck to neck, but I think that at the end of the day, Judge Way will prevail.
Okay, I think you wanted to say something.
I've always been skeptical about this giving me another 4 years to do well. If you have not done too well, I'm not saying he will lose or but if you've not done too well in the first 4 years or 5 years, you've not laid a strong foundation to guarantee what will come in, the next 5 years, I think it might be challenging for him at the end of the day, despite what you said.
Okay. In the last election, Dr. Ono, George Weah, he rode on the wave of being an international football star. That was how he easily got 61% of the votes. And I think that the fact that this time around, he managed to get just 43.83 ahead of the other man who got 43.4 or so, shows that popularity has gone down. It's very obvious, and it's not as popular as it was in the last election. But the question I want to raise is this. One of the things that has brought this about is that in their system in Liberia, for you to win at the first instance, you must get 50% plus 1. Now, that's why you have the runoff. But in Nigeria, we don't have that. What we have in Nigeria is, you just get the majority and you are gone. You've won. But when former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, presidential candidate of the PDP, was reacting to the Supreme Court judgment, this was one of the issues he raised. He recommended that we should change the system in Nigeria, whereby you don't just win by a simple majority or getting the more popular votes and having the spread. You must have at least 50% plus 1. Do you think that that suggestion will work in Nigeria and make our system better? So that if we have 10 presidential candidates and nobody gets above the threshold, then we can have runoff like this, where we have just 2 candidates in the system. Both of you.
Ambassador. When you started, you saw me that I was smiling.
Yes.
Because somehow on my way here, it occurred to me, that this is exactly maybe what we should do. But almost immediately, a part of me also said, look, if you do that, Nigerian politicians, the Supreme Court, INEC, will find a way around it. Prof, your turn.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, I believe that the former vice president, that is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, he actually made those recommendations as part of the contribution, seeing way forward for Nigeria, considering the fact that any time we have election, it's as if we are having civil war. You understand? So, and I believe that it's high time that both the elites, the ruling class, will come together and look for way forward so that our election can be peaceful and orderly, free and fair, just like as we are seeing in Liberia. If there is anything we have to take away from this Liberian election, even from the first one, and maybe this runoff, we've not heard about rigging, we've not heard about, there is snatching of ballot boxes, we've not heard about voters' intimidation or aggression. And I think it's a welcome development, at least happening in West Africa. If we listen to the report of Atahiru Jega, who is the chief election observer for the Economic Community of West African States, he was quite satisfied, saying that he loved the orderly and the peaceful way the election, went on. So we are now waiting for the result. I believe there are a lot of lessons we should learn, and in learning those lessons, not just learning lessons, we will learn lessons to see how we can use it to modify our existing system to make it better.
Real quickly, I like to come on even that point. Juxtapose this with the off-cycle elections we had over the weekend that a lot of people say was a return to Golgotha. Can you please, you want to expatiate more?
Yes, I actually wanted to draw his attention to that when you look at the off-season election that, if there was any hope in the last couple of, after the presidential election, that things will be right in terms of our election, I think everything has been destroyed by this off-season election. And you talk of the elites are congratulating those who won, irrespective of how they won. So I don't see who is going to come up and reform the Nigerian electoral system as it is today, except something drastic or dramatic happens, which I don't know. But as it is today, when you go through what happened in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi especially, look, you just feel a sense of hopelessness, that there's nothing anybody can do when it comes to election in this country. Anybody, and I think some people are saying that they won't even bother going to court. I support them because they are not going to get the kind of justice that they want. Because also our courts, with all due respect, sir, to you, Abati, our courts are not no longer a court of justice; they are a court of favors. So if you are hoping that you are saying we should...
You're impugning the Supreme Court. You're impugning the court.
You are saying that we should copy or we should learn. Every time we speak in this country, we are talking of learning from one person or the other. Yes. 60 years after, we are still learning. So when are people going to learn from us?
Okay, Ambassador Keshi, you will come. Ambassador Keshi, please. A lot of people will say, is impugning the courts, is it solution? Because you said something about the courts just now. And people will say you're impugning the courts.
I'm not impugning the court. I'm just dealing with the reality. I'll tell you some of the court session. I have my own complete different view of the Nigerian court system today. And I just don't want to say more so that you don't say I'm impugning it. But all I'm just trying to say is that every time you hear us speak or something happens in another country, our first reaction is we should learn from this, we should learn from that. Haven't we been learning for 60 years? Well, election, we can't get, right from when I was a child in Ibadan, in Agodi, I still have memories of how elections were rigged.
So
we are still rigging it till today. It's even worse. It's war.
I'm sure you're talking about wet, Wild Wild West.
No, not even wet, I'm sure you heard of ballot boxes being in coffin.
Yeah.
It was But, it was in a school close to our residence then in Ibadan.
So let me come to you. Apart from being an intellectual, you're a military man, all right?
I was.
You were a military man.
I was.
And these were the same countries that probably when we set up ECOMOG, maybe you were posted there or you were not posted there. These were the same countries that were coming out of the turmoil of war and everything, countries like Liberia. But it looks as if we've had stability, or that they've even gotten the process better than us. Isn't it a shame and indictment on us? And they've even gotten, that you're having a runoff and you're not hearing any sound of gun. And it's just done success. And you're saying we should learn from the same country that Nigeria, that pump money to ECOMOG to go and save under Charles Taylor. And Charles Taylor stayed in Calabar at our backyard here. He tried to run. Obasanjo apprehended him. We dealt with him and handed him over to the international court. So this is the same country as we should go and learn from. It's not an indictment on us.
Well, let me say something. Ambassador, with due respect, sir, when I say we should learn, I don't just end in learn. I say that we should learn and implement what we have learned. Then again, there are issues again to be considered. If you look at the population of Liberia, Liberia is not even up to a state in Nigeria. And you look at our population, you understand with our diversities, criss-cutting cleavages and all these things, you realize that we are a country of more than 200 million. Learning is a process, is a continuum. We can never arrive at a point that we say we stop learning. Look at American democracy. Under Trump, we saw what happened at the Capitol Hill. You understand what I'm saying? There is no perfect system. I'm not saying that I'm proud of the system that is going on today, but what I'm saying is that we still have rooms for improvement.
All right. Okay, Ambassador, this is the fourth presidential election after the Civil War in Liberia, right? And this is the first that will be conducted without United Nations mission supervision. The UN used to supervise those previous elections. Now, if they manage to get it right, as they seem to be getting it right with this runoff, what is the significance of that? Does it mean that after the war, Liberia is beginning to stand on its own?
I think so, given the fact that, after the war, they went through another problem of Ebola and things like that again destroyed the initial gains they made after the war. And to see that they are conducting a peaceful election, irrespective of the little skirmishes in the first ballot. Look, it's a credit to what has happened in Liberia in the last 20 years. And I think we should recognize it. It's only if you recount what happened in Liberia, or if you were in Liberia or visited Liberia during the war, and the destruction and the psychic of the people, particularly the young fellows who took part in the war, and you come to realize that they are now having a peaceful election, irrespective of the fact that our old friend General Johnson is still around and now a civilian and a politician. It is to the credit of the leadership in the last couple of years from Johnson, what's her name? I'm trying to remember her first name, the lady president. Yes, to the current president. I think that we should commend them really, because they've really done enough. I mean, they've really done well to ensure that the election is becoming peaceful and that it's no longer as violent as, things used to be in Liberia, especially during the war and post-war, period.
All right. So, okay. Dr. What?
No, Dr. Ono, I thought maybe you were going to respond to that.
Yes,
and what you consider to be, what should be the priority for
if you look at
whoever comes in?
If you look at where they were coming from, talking about two civil wars, from 1989 to 2003, and then you have the Ebola case. The two civil wars claim about 250,000 lives. And we talk about the Ebola epidemic from 2013 to 2016 that claim about almost 12,000 lives. You realize that at least they've suffered a lot and they just want to live at peace. And then again, if you look, I think we equally have to give credit to the incumbent president of Liberia, George Weah. When we are talking about the fact that he's losing popularity, which I don't believe, because even as Dr. Abati has said, the 61% was still on the runoff election of the first one that he got the 61%, because the first election of 2017 was highly contested until they went for runoff. So if you look at him, we should give him credit, at least for him not superimposing himself on this election, using the oppressive apparatus of the state to manipulate the system and maybe, terrorize his opponents. We should give him that credit. Sure. You understand? Because at least for the first time, we are seeing this type of election, especially in West Africa. You are seeing a free and fair election, even from local observers and international observers. There are a lot of commendations. So I think it's a kudos to him. You understand? So I believe that the people have suffered a lot. They just want to have a free and fair election. Like when we are talking, and when you look at the number, the population of the country, they are very small. We are talking about 12 counties. You understand? Even though there were pre-election violence, that is prelude to the election, there were some violence here and there. But thank God that the election is peaceful and orderly. So I think it's
Well, if you keep talking of population, what's the population of Kogi, Bayelsa, or Imo?
Well, when we talk about population of Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo...
No, separately, not collectively.
No, I'm coming, excuse me.
Because they're also very small.
You cannot separate Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa from what has been happening in Nigeria.
Okay.
We have identified the fact that we're having problem in this country, and this problem needs to be looked into. And we see how we are going to ameliorate these issues.
Okay.
All right, I agree.
So,
thank you.
I'd like to also put a twist into this conversation. In all of this, the name of Taylor still is in the fray in Liberia politics despite all it did. The running mate with George Oponwe is Joel Howard Taylor.
The former wife.
The former wife.
Yes.
Current vice president.
Current vice president. Let's couch a conversation around that.
Well, in fact, I was actually there when that marriage took place. You know, the lady herself was a professional. She was a technocrat. I think she was the head of the Liberian bank then, just like CBN, when something. So, even when the wedding took place then, the lady has carved a niche for herself. Okay. You understand? So, her being into politics, I don't think she has brought something to the table.
Do you think the name Taylor also had been what had engineered her to that path, or because she just carved a niche for herself?
Just like I said that the lady has carved a niche for herself.
Yeah.
She was the former, that is governor of the bank. Yes, I think either the deputy governor or the governor. You know, even before she got married to Charles Taylor. So she's a technocrat, and she came, you know, with a lot of experiences, especially in the financial area. Okay. Like now we can see that the Liberian economy appreciated by 4.8% in 2022, even though they've ascribed it to maybe gold and the fair weather that actually help harvest to increase. But whatever, we can see that the economy just improved by 4.8%.
Ambassador, will you couch it that way, or you still say it still plays the name drop still plays a factor?
You know, you cannot be a world leader, a rebel for almost 10 years, in the case of Charles Taylor, and also president for almost another period, about the same period. And your name simply fades away in the air. No. Beyond that, Charles Taylor, as a world leader or rebel leader, had a great impact on Liberia, you know. And even as president, he commanded a lot of, maybe respect, but there were a lot of people who, as president, you know, for their own, should I say, for their own sanity. Because, look, I don't know whether many of us do realize that when ECOWAS was trying to negotiate to get Charles Taylor to be part of the process, initially, he was not receptive to that idea and thought that he could fight his way to power. But when he did realize that that was impossible and decided to go through the democratic process, the first thing he told the people of Liberia was that if they do not elect him, he will go back to the bush and continue fighting. So it was like everybody said, look, let's give it to, give it to him, and, But unfortunately, as president, he could not, he could not do much to begin the reconciliation, to begin, rebuilding the country. Even though, again, I'll give him kudos, because I was involved, to helping us to resolve the Sierra Leonean crisis. But generally, his name has been in the, in the public place for over 30 years or more now. So his name cannot suddenly disappear. He has disciples, he has followers in that country. Just like the likes of General Johnson and, the other characters who were involved in the Civil War. So they will still be, for some time to come, because they are all aging now, they will still be very influential in the politics of Liberia.
Okay. Ambassador Keshi, Dr. No, we have just about a minute to go, but I want to take advantage of the fact that we have people within the international affairs space. What is going on in the UK? The appointment of David Cameron as Foreign Secretary, and Suella Braverman taking a pound of flesh, attacking the Prime Minister, practically calling him thoroughly incompetent and weak. What do you think? Briefly, because we've run out of time already.
Well, I think I think the Tories are preparing for the next election. And they needed somebody that could help them rally the base. And they had to depend or, decided that the former Prime Minister, still with a good standing within the Conservative Party, will help the Conservative Party. Beyond that, I actually look beyond that. Let's not rule out the possibility that, former Prime Minister, now Minister of, Secretary of State, Foreign Secretary, could actually bounce back to power himself in the near future.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Joe Keshi and Dr. Kester, for joining us on the morning show.